الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ربنا زدنا علما أجمعين وعلمنا الكتاب. So we'll just go ahead and get started, and then if more people show up, then we will actually, so in the beginning we'll just do like we'll go back and do a review like we always do sometimes once every few weeks, and this is just to beat it into our heads, all the different classifications of the words and all of the types of stuff that we've been learning, like particles and adverbs and things like that. So like we always start with the three types of words that exist in Arabic, right? So Arabic, you can only have one of three things. Like in English, you have nouns, conjunctions, subjects, verbs. Arabic, you only have three classifications of what a word can be. So what's the first thing it can be? Or in English?
Noun.
So you have ismun or noun, right? And this is anything like a person, a place, thing, idea, whatever. And then the second thing it can be is fi'l or verb. And the last thing it can be is harf or particle. So we all know what a verb is, and but a particle is basically like a small part of a word. That's not like a complete thing by itself, but it helps form sentences and questions and other things like that. As far as nouns go, we say that the nouns in Arabic, they decline, meaning that they change their sounds based on where they are in the sentence, right? Or what the purpose of that noun is. So by default, they are all what? Marfu', right? Marfu' means in English it's called nominative case. Nominative case. And usually this means that if there's a noun like bayt, like house, what is it going to end in?
Baytun. Baytun
with dhammas, right? So you can either have one dhamma or two dhammas. Okay? This concept, though, is just a general rule, because now that we've studied a little bit more, you know that we started this on day one, but now you know that there are some things that can be marfu', but they can have a sukoon on them, or they can have a fatha on them, or they can have a kasra on them, right? Or they have nothing on them, but we still call them marfu'. So this example really is the default or the general rule for general nouns. But there are other things like the word muslimuna, right? Muslimuna is the plural for Muslim, right? Muslimuna. So here, the noon has a fatha on it, but you still say it's marfu' because the plural, this is the sound plural, ends in una. It has to be una for it to be marfu'. Okay? When you get to the other cases, then it changes. But we'll talk about that inshallah. Alright, so what else can it change to from marfu'? Mansoob, and this is in English it's called accusative case. Accusative. Okay? And generally, this is what? What does it have on the end? No, a fatha, right? It will either have one fatha or two fathas. So if you're making a mistake, you would make the mistake of looking at muslimuna and thinking that it's accusative, but it's not, okay? Because it's a plural, and plurals have their own different case endings. When muslimuna becomes mansoob, it becomes actually muslimina. So this is just an example of how this rule that I'm showing you here has like a footnote on it or a little asterisk on it. So it doesn't apply for every single word, it applies for most of them. Okay? Alright, and then the last one is?
And you saying the asterisk is that the same with the marfu?
Yeah, I'm just showing that this case that marfu always has dhamma, mansub always has fatha is generally true for simple nouns, but for plural nouns like muslimuna, it's not true, right? They have their own way of becoming mansub and majroor. So the last one is majroor. In English, they call this the genitive case. Okay, and this is usually has a kasra or two kasras, right? So we know that if you have a word like Muslim, so now we're going back to singular, Muslimun, right? I can make this mansub by just putting two fathas, Musliman, and then I can make it majroor by making Muslimin, right? So this is how we've done it for the last, for almost all of it now. Muslimun is marfu, Musliman is mansub, Muslimin is majroor. Okay. This thing that I'm showing you here is the new way to see it. Not the new way, but I'm just showing you that this is not 100% right. So, specifically for Muslimuna, right? You don't look at the noon and say, oh, it has a fatha, it must be mansub. Okay, this is a sound masculine plural. It has its own. When Muslimuna wants to become majroor, it does the same thing as mansub. It becomes muslimina. Muslimina. Okay.
And there's sukun on the yas on the second one.
Yeah. So what's the problem here?
You can't tell if it's majroor.
You can't tell, right? Muslimina, it can be mansub, or muslimina, it can be majroor. So depending on where it is in the sentence, that will tell you if the word is mansub or majroor. Okay?
Is this all these all plurals are like this? Majority?
Most plurals are like this, but they follow different patterns. Like muslimatun has a different pattern. Like it has a different way of breaking into mansub and majroor. Okay? I'm just showing you one example where this is not true. What else was I going to say? Okay, we'll talk about pronouns, because pronouns are similar, right? Because if I say ra'aytahu or ra'aytuhu, I saw him, the word hu is a pronoun, so it exists in this category. That means it can either be marfu, mansub, or majroor. But pronouns we said are what? For the next one. No. Mabni. Pronouns are mabni. So if something is mabni, it can be marfu, mansub, or majroor, but the sign on it will not change, right? If it's a sukun, it'll stay a sukun. If it's a dhamma, it'll stay a dhamma. Okay, that's what mabni means. It doesn't change. All right. Then we talked about verbs and nouns together. So we said the nominal sentence versus the verbal sentence. Alright, how do you tell them apart, Brother Anwar?
Nominal sentence start with any name.
A noun.
Noun.
Starts with a noun.
Yeah.
Noun, and verbal sentence starts with?
Verb.
Starts with a verb. Starts with verb. Okay. And what are the two parts to it, Sister Shireen? Nominal sentence. There's two parts to a nominal sentence. Subject and?
Predicate.
Predicate, right? So you have a subject and you have a predicate. What's the subject called in Arabic, do you remember?
Mubtada.
Mubtada. And khabar.
Khabar.
Excellent.
It's great.
Not qabr, khabar. What case is the mubtada in? Always marfu, mansoob, or majroor? Marfu, right? So the mubtada by default will be marfu. Okay. What about the khabar?
Is subject.
Is it going to be marfu, mansoob, or majroor?
Marfu.
Actually, it depends, because
Depends on-
there's different types of khabar, right? There's different types of khabar. We said khabar can be one word, right? So if I'm saying Bilalun tabibun, Bilal is a doctor, then the khabar tabib is one word, right? So in this case, if it's one word, then it will be marfu. Okay? Bilalun tabibun. Bilal is a doctor. Both Bilal and tabib are both marfu. The second thing a khabar can be,
An object.
no.
Harf,
Sorry?
harf, like,
What's that called? That
harf jar or no?
harf jar followed by
Shibu jumla, no.
Yeah.
shibul jumla, yes. We'll come to that, but
Mudaf ilay?
no.
No.
Go back to what you said. Harf jar followed by
Jar
Jar majroor.
jar majroor. There you go. That's it. Harf jar is followed by ism majroor, so it's called jarun wa majroor. Right? If I said Bilalun fil masjidi, Bilal is in the masjid. Fil masjidi is jar majroor. It's a harf jar followed by ism majroor. Okay? That one obviously is, you can't just say, oh, it's marfu, because the word masjid has to be obviously majroor, right? It can also be shibul jumla, right? It can just be a phrase. Or the third one that we're going to write, a jumla, it can be a verbal sentence.
Can it also be a zarf, like adverb?
Yeah, it can have an adverb as well. So that would be similar to like a shibul jumla, like a phrase. Okay? But this is important. You can have a nominal sentence that has a verbal sentence inside it. So, an example of that would be if I said, Bilalun,
Right into the masjid.
right, Bilalun, let's say,
Faqirun.
ذهب, let's just say ذهب, simple. ذهب إلى المسجد or إلى السوق, whatever. Okay? So, I have Bilalun ذهب إلى السوق. What does the sentence start with? A nominal, a noun, or a verb?
Noun.
It starts with a noun,
Noun.
right? So now I can no longer say this is a verbal sentence. I have to say this is a nominal sentence. That means now I have to have a subject and I have to have a khabar. So where is my subject?
Bilal.
Bilal. So I'm going to put like a big line here and separate my subject and my predicate. Okay? So here's my subject, Bilalun. Now khabar is coming, but the khabar is a jumla fi'liya. It's a verbal sentence by itself. So I'm going to say this
Is the cover.
This is the khabar. I'm going to make a smaller box for dhahaba ila suqi, and I'm going to say the verbal sentence is the khabar for the nominal sentence, Bilal. Okay? So this whole verbal sentence can be a khabar. Okay? Alright, let's talk about verbal sentences real quick. They have to have two things, and they can have a third thing optional. What are the two things they have to have?
Object. No, they don't have to have object.
Must have subject.
Must have a subject.
And a verb.
What's the subject called in a verbal sentence?
Fa'il.
Fa'il.
Fa'il. Fa'il. And then they also have to have a
Object.
no,
Verb, sorry.
verb, right?
Verb.
Obviously, it's a verbal sentence,
Fa'il.
so the verb has to be there. And what is it called, Brother Anwar?
Fa'il.
No.
Fa'il.
Fa'il.
Fa'il. Fa'il.
Yeah. Okay. So those are the two must-haves. Then the optional is what?
Object.
Object.
Maf'ulun bihi.
Maf'ulun bihi, object.
مفعول به.
Alright, how much time do we have? We're fine. Alright, so you have your subject, fa'il, verb, fi'il, and object, maf'ulun bihi. So in this case, so now let's break this part of it down. So now we have ذهب إلى السوق. Okay? So where is my verb?
ذهب.
ذهب, right? ذهب is the verb. So I have that. Now, what I have to have a fa'il, so where is the fa'il?
It's hidden.
It's hidden. It's called in Arabic mustatir. If the fa'il is mustatir, it doesn't mean it's not there, it just means it's hidden inside of the verb. Okay? So dhahaba, you say it is both fi'il and fa'il, but the fa'il is mustatir, it's hidden. Okay? What about maf'ulun bihi? Does it have an object?
Yes.
Where?
Yeah, which does not have an object.
It does not have an object, right?
Yeah.
It does not have an object because dhahaba, you can just say he went, right? You don't have to you can't ask the question who or what. Who
Which.
or what. Right? So if you have to ask those two questions, one of those two questions, like if I said I wrote, you have to ask what. Then it means that you have to have an object. Actually, saying this is optional is not correct because some verbs require an object. This should be more like can be required. Can be required. It's not always required, but there are some verbs that have to have an object. Okay? Alright, let's really quick talk about the cases. So you have the subject and the verb and the object. So the subject is going to be an ism, right? And then the object is also going to be a noun, right? So what are the cases for the subject and the object?
The subjects are going to be marfu'.
The subject has to be marfu'. Right? So if I'm saying like kharaja Ali, Ali left. Kharaja Aliyun, I have to make it marfu' Aliyun with two dhammas. Okay? Or I can say kharaja al-mudarrisu, al-mudarrisatu. If I'm kharajat al-mudarrisatu. Okay? So the subject is always marfu'. And what is the object always?
Mansub.
Mansub. It always has a fatha. Or it's just, we call it mansub. Okay. And one last thing before we go. Verbs themselves will have cases. Okay, this is coming up later, like the second half of book 2. They're going to talk about this fact that verbs can have cases just like these. Verbs can either be marfu', mansub, and a third case, which we haven't learned, is called majzoom. Okay? Not majnoon. Majzoom. Jazm. Okay. So majzoom is sort of like majroor, but it's only for verbs. Okay. This is why there's a second column in the present tense. You know that sheet you have? It's called, what is it called? Noon comes and goes. So when the verbs change cases, the noon will come and the noon will go. And this is what we're going to learn. This is why Arabic verbs, like people say, it's very complicated, but if you break it down like this, it's easy.
I was wondering why it's called noon comes and goes and it's always there.
It's there. It's there because right now we're only learning the marfu form. When we learn the other forms, the cases, then it's going to go. Alright, really quick, let's do a quick verb conjugation and then we'll go. And then after Salah, we'll come back and then we'll do lesson 7, inshallah. How about
Galaba.
Ghalaba? Excellent choice. What's Ghalaba mean?
He won.
He won, or he was dominant, or he overpowered, right? Alright, let's do past tense. We'll do it together so that you don't follow me. Ready? غلب غلب غلبوا غلبت. another verb conjugation. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Alright, just before we go back, I want to go back to this sentence. Bilalun dhahaba ila suqi. Okay? Translate it in English.
Bilal went to the market.
Bilal went to the market, right? What did we say about this sentence? What was it, a nominal sentence or a verbal sentence?
Nominal sentence.
It was a nominal sentence, and because it began with a noun, right?
Bilal.
Okay. Now I'm gonna write ذهب بلال إلى السوق. Okay. What is this sentence in English?
Verbal.
Verbal sentence.
No. Is the meaning the same?
Yes.
Yes, right? Bilal went to the market. Okay. But the difference is that this sentence is a verbal sentence. Why?
Because it
Because
begins with
it
the
start
verb.
with verb.
Because it starts with a verb, ذهب. So this is a verbal sentence, and this is a nominal sentence. So even though they both have the same exact meaning, there's no change in meaning. The first one is a verbal sentence. So if it is a verbal sentence, so now we have to have these three things, right? Or these two things. So where is my verb?
Dhahaba.
Dhahaba. Okay. If I ask you here in this one, you would say the same thing, right? Dhahaba.
Yes.
So if I just break this apart and say this is the verbal sentence, is dhahaba. Okay. But where is the subject, the fa'il for this one?
Hidden.
It's
It's
hidden. Okay. What about here? Where is
It's,
the fa'il?
It's hidden as well.
Bilal.
Bilalun. Bilalun.
Bilalun. Okay,
Bilal.
it's not hidden.
No,
If
no.
there is a subject, you have to identify it as such.
Okay.
Okay, if there is a subject, you don't have to have this here. You can just say ذهب إلى السوق, and if you had referenced Bilal before, it would make sense. Okay, but if you have the subject that's present, Bilalun, then it has to be it's not mustatir anymore. It's not hidden anymore. It is the subject. Okay, so this is what I'm trying to show, is that when you have ذهب بلال and Bilalun ذهب, they might look like they're the same thing, but they're actually very different. So ذهب بلال is a fi'l, verb, and a fa'il, subject. Here, this is two different things. This is a mubtada, and this whole thing is the khabar.
Cover.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about lesson 7. So, but before that, really quickly, what are some ways that we said something marfu can become mansoob? So how would I go
It's
from
accusative.
marfu to mansoob?
It's the accusative. It's the object of the sentence.
If it's the object of what?
The sentence. The verb.
Of a verb, right? If it's right here, we just said if it's the maf'ulun bihi, if it's the object of a verb, it will be mansoob, right? So if I say I read the Quran, qara'tu al-Qur'ana. So al-Quran is the object, the thing that I read. So then instead of al-Qur'anu, it's going to be al-Qur'ana. Okay, what else is another way that something can be mansoob? Inna. What about inna?
No.
If it's the ism inna, right? What is the example you always should remember?
Inna Allaha.
Inna Allah. Inna Allah. So that Allah will always have a fatha, and you can say Ghafurun, Rahimun, Azimun, whatever. Okay? So Inna Allah something. I think is that the only, no, we have some other ways, right? What else can we say?
Akhawatu inna.
And all the sisters of inna, right? Ism inna, and sisters of inna. Okay, you said kana, but what is it about kana? Because we
Kana.
talked about kana on Friday.
Kana acts like a verb.
It acts like a verb, but how does it make something mansoob? It's
It
the
makes
opposite of
the
inna.
khabar mansoob.
It makes the khabar of kana mansoob. So here you have object, ism inna, and this third one is khabar of kana. مصدر of كان. So for this one, you should always remember the example كان الله. كان الله.
عزيز حكيما.
No. عزيز.
عزيزا.
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 With two fathas. Okay. So what's the difference here? Is that the ism kana is marfu', but the khabar kana is mansub. It's the opposite of inna. So whereas inna it was inna Allah, Allah was the one that was mansub, and then ghafurun or something like that. Ghafurun, right, was marfu'. Here it's the opposite. So with inna it's mansub marfu' fatha dhamma, and here it's dhamma fatha. Okay. كان الله عزيزا, كان الله رحيما, كان الله رقيبا, things like that. So just remember these two. Inna Allah azizun or rahimun. كان الله رحيما. Okay. And this, the verb kana means he was or it was, but it also means a more perfect. Like when the Quran says, "Inna Allah kana alaykum raqiba," Allah was completely watching over you. But here it means like He's always there, in the past, the present, and the future. So it's a total, complete sense. Okay. Kana also, we said, has a present tense. He is, and then we're going to talk about that later. All right, so that was so we were going through lesson 7, right? So let's go to the key. That was point number 5 about kana. Look at the last thing on point number 5. So they give the example Bilalun maridun. What kind of sentence is this?
What page?
I'm on for this one book is page 24. So point number 5 in the English key was kana, he was. Is everybody there? Okay. So it says Bilalun maridun. I'm going to look at the bottom of point number 5. Bilalun maridun. Brother Najmul, what kind of sentence is that?
Bilalun
Maridun.
is nominative.
Nominative sentence, right? There's a mubtada, there's a khabar. So the khabar is one word. What's the khabar?
Maridun.
Maridun is sick. Okay? So they're both marfu' in this case. Bilalun maridun. Marfu', dhamma, dhamma. When I add kana, what happens to Bilalun? It stays the same, but what happens to maridun? It becomes maridan, mansub. Excellent. Okay, so this is the example, and this was also the homework for exercise 6. All right, now point number 6. Brother Ala, do you want to read?
Note the following: رجل ذو اللحية.
رجل ذو لحية.
A bearded man.
Okay.
الرجل ذو اللحية. The bearded man.
Okay, so they give you 2 examples now. Rajulun means a man, right? And what is the particle zu? With, or owning or possessing. Okay? So this is a way to say owning or possessing. So if I want to say a man with a beard, or a bearded man, basically, I have to say rajulun zu lihyatin. Okay? Why does lihyatin have a kasra? Why is it majroor?
Because dhu makes it majroor.
Why? What is dhu?
Harf jar.
No. It's not a harf. It is a harf, but it's not a harf jar, it's a mudaf. Okay?
Oh, mudaf.
Mudaf, so the ism that follows it is mudaf ilayhi. Mudaf ilayhi is always
Definitely.
Majroor.
It's always majroor, right? Kitabullahi. Kitabullahi, Rasulullahi. Right, so the mudaf ilayhi is always majroor. Same thing with ar-rajulu. So now I'm saying the man with the beard. So what's the difference between the two sentences? Is that the al
Makes it definite.
makes it definite, right?
Definite.
So if I'm just saying a man with a beard, a bearded man, I have to use indefinite. Rajulun ذو لحية. That's why there's no al there. When I say the bearded man, I have to say الرجل ذو لحية. So I'll just read the what they say. It's, the next portion. In the first example, ذو qualifies an indefinite noun, right? رجل. And in the second example, the definite noun الرجل. We know that the adjective of a definite noun should also be definite. But zu is mudaf and cannot take al, so this is overcome by making the mudaf ilayhi definite by adding al. So in rajulun zu lihyatin, the mudaf ilayhi remains indefinite, and in ar-rajulu zu lihyati, it becomes definite, al-lihyati. There are some more examples. Brother Najmul, do you want to read the first example?
Indi
Mm-hmm.
kitabun zu wil girafin
Jamilin.
jamilin.
Mm-hmm.
I have a book with a beautiful cover.
Okay, Brother Anwar, do you want to read the next one?
Yeah. Al-Kitabu Ju Al-Gali Galafi
Zul Ghilafi.
Zul Ghilafi
Ghilafi.
Fil Al-Jamili Jamili Galin
Ghalin.
Galin.
Okay, what does that mean?
The book with the beautiful cover is expensive.
Very expensive. Okay. So this is your next one.
في قريتنا
Mm-hmm.
مسجد ذو منارات
واحدة.
واحدة.
واحدة. Right? The word wahida means one.
Okay. In our village, there is a mosque with one minaret.
With one minaret. So في قريتنا, in our village, masjidun is a masjid. ذو منارة واحدة is a masjid with one minara. Sitara, next one.
المسجد ذو منارات واحدة قديم.
The mosque.
The mosque with one minaret is old.
Okay. We don't have time to analyze these sentences, but you can analyze them. They are nominal sentences. But inshallah, we'll just go to the next point. Alright, it says number 7. The letter mim in antum, kitabukum, hum, kitabuhum, dhahabtum has sukoon. And this sukoon changes to dhamma followed by a hamzatul wasl. Okay? So now they're talking about when a word ends with a mim with a sukoon. And it's followed by a letter with hamzatul wasl. Right? So you, like we said, that you can't have, you can't pronounce if there's two sukoons, right? If there's a word, a phrase where one ends with a sukoon and the other one starts with a sukoon, you have to make some changes. And we've already seen this with another example.
Right to who?
No, that's not it. It's similar, but not really. But you're right. That is a sort of change. So in this example, the first example they give is baytukum. So baytukum means your house. Baytukum. Baytukum, right? And now I want to say your new house. So I have to add al-jadid to it. So al-jadidu. Okay. So I have baytukum, and then I have al. So what is the rule with the hamzatul wasl? Remember from the Quran class? Sister Tahra, Sister Shireen. What's the rule with hamzatul wasl?
We'll skip that.
You skip that, right? You don't. If there's something before the hamzatul wasl, you don't pronounce it, right? So you're not gonna be pronouncing the hamzatul wasl. You have baytukum, a mim with a sukoon, and now you have to skip to a lam with a sukoon. So you have two sukoons that are coming together. How do you say it? Do you say baytukum al-jadid?
So we
No.
add one dhamma.
So you have to add a dhamma to the mim to make it mu. Baytukum al-jadid.
It's only dhamma, not wow, right?
No,
Like
and
other
no, it's
day
not a
you
wow,
were
it's
saying,
only a
yeah.
dhamma. That's what they're
Other
saying,
day-
it changes to a dhamma.
Yeah.
Dhamma, okay.
Okay. The other example, Brother Ala, read the second one. رأيتم.
أرأيتم الإمام.
So the same thing, رأيتم followed by imam. So if I want to say, did you see the imam? أرأيتم الإمام. أرأيتم الإمام. Brother Najmul, read the next example.
كتابهم
Mhm.
كتابهم القديم.
Okay, what does كتابهم القديم mean?
Kitab is the book is old.
Their old.
Their old book.
Their old.
كتابهم is their
Yeah,
book.
their old.
كتابهم القديم, their old book. Brother Anwar, next one.
Assalamu.
سألتم.
Assaltum.
What's سألتم? Anyone?
Assaltum.
Did you ask?
You asked.
You asked, actually.
Okay.
Assaltum. Abna.
Ibnahu.
Ibna.
So did you ask his son? Ibnahu is his son. سألتم. So
Then-
سألتم مبنه.
Saltum.
مبنه.
Mubna.
Alright, last 2 points and then we'll basically be done. I'll give you the homework and then we'll meet on Wednesday inshallah and go over the lesson and the homework. Number 8 says Abshir. Abshir is basically like a expression of happiness, like good news. Okay, it just means good news. Abshir. Alright, number 9, Thuluthun. 1/3. So remember the numbers, right? Wahid, what's 2? اثنين ثلاثة أربعة خمسة ستة سبعة ثمانية تسعة and عشرة. So if you want to make those into fractions, like 1/3, 1/4, 1/5, it says so let's read. ثلث 1/3. Fractions meaning 1/3, 1/4, 1/5, up to 1/10 are on the pattern of فعل. Are on the pattern of فعل. The dhamma, okay, so let me explain that first. So, thuluthun is that pattern, right? What would it be for 1/4? So, what's fourth?
ربع. رابع.
Sorry. Arba'a.
Babu.
So, the letters are ra, ba, and u. So, put them under the fu'ulun pattern.
رابع.
Rub'un.
ربع.
Actually, so they explain, the pattern is fu'ulun. Notice it's fu'ulun, but for most of them, the ayn will have a dhamma. Will have a dhamma. Rub'un instead of rubu'un, it makes more sense to say rubu'un. Okay.
So what are you saying? It's going to have a dhamma or is it going to have sukoon?
Sukoon.
Read the next point. The dhamma of the second letter ayn is mostly omitted. This is what it's saying. This is the pattern is fu'ulun. They're saying this dhamma is mostly omitted and you just substitute for it a sukoon. Okay?
Makes sense.
But so there's always exceptions, right? Thuluthun and sudusun, third and a sixth. Put under thuluthun 1/3 and sudusun 1/6. Those are the exceptions. For everything else like rubu'un, khumsun, subu'un.
What about 2?
2 is different actually. This is only from 2 to 10. What's half? This is also
Nisf.
nisfun. So the exception is 1/2 is nisfun.
1/6.
Nisfun is 1/2.
So how many we have left? Only 3, 4.
Only 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Yeah. Or should this one, yeah. Alright, so that was basically lesson 7. The homework.
Wow, lesson 6 is really holding us back because we'll slide through these stuff.
Well, the exercises are long, yeah. Well, actually, it's not that long. We only have 12 exercises in this one. So 6. If you didn't do 6, do 6 for Wednesday. Also do exercise number 7. So exercise number 7 is basically that meme rule. أقرأتم القرآن, the Dhamma on the meme, so just write them out.